शैवासमुपासते शिव इति ब्रह्मेति वेदान्तिनो बौद्धा बुद्ध इति प्रमाणपटवः कर्तेति नैयायिकाः अर्हन्नित्यथ जैनशासनरताः कर्मेति मीमांसकाः सोऽयं विदधातु वाञ्छितफलं त्रैलोक्यनाथो हरिः सोऽयं विदधातु वाञ्छितफलं त्रैलोक्यनाथो हरिः मदीयहृदयाकाशे सदानन्दमयो गुरुः उदेतु सततं सम्यक् अज्ञानतिमिरारुणः हरिः ओम् हरिः ओम् हरिः all of you together My dear viewers, you will find suddenly a difference in the manner in which your Swamiji appears and he is seated, he is also talking. So far, whatever you heard in the form of inner spiritual splendor was a recording done in Delhi in our CAR. It was done in the octagonal session hall in a perhaps palpably different ambience. From now onwards, perhaps for a few days, at least for you, for a few episodes, your Swamiji will be talking from Narayanashrama Tapovaram in Kerala, from the Vijnana Bhavan hall, which was particularly set for the Guru Purnima function that happened to take place yesterday, the 15th of July. I am now speaking to you from the ashram on the 16th of July. I don't have my turban because in Delhi I had to have it. Now it's a Kerala weather, so I can be very much as I am in the ashram without my turban. That is one difference. You will also find some other differences. Our ashram is situated in the village on the slope of Pandavagiri hill, which is a very famous one. This Pandavagiri derived its name because in the Dwapara Yuga, the Pancha Pandavas along with Draupadi happened to come here during their forest exile. And Draupadi particularly is said to have done immense austerity upon this hill, particularly focused on the Devi installed there. And what about the Devi? She has a legend that this particular deity was installed by Lord Parashurama in Treta Yuga. Treta Yuga is one yuga before Dwapara. So this hill and the Devi, they have a great and a long age. We are not able to even imagine it. This temple was rejuvenated a few years back, and I myself had to do a lot of work there, along with about 100 odd laborers and with a whistle on my mouth and hand. So quite a number of months I used to go to the temple from the ashram, maybe about 7:45 or 7:40 in the morning, come back by about 1 o'clock, reach there back before 2 and then again come back by 7 or 6:45. Quite a number of months hard and exclusive endeavor was necessary before it could be raised in the manner in which it appears now. I believe all of you will do well to pay a visit to this temple. If you propose to come, let the information be passed on to the ashram so that we can make arrangements to see that you are properly allowed to see, your entry into the temple is facilitated. That is one point. When I came over to Narayana Ashram Bhavanam, it was possibly in the year 1963. This place was completely rural and a kind of a jungle. I remember a number of rabbits, snakes, jackals and the other things were there. Now it has become almost a quasi-town, and adjacent to our ashram on the east and also on the north there is a road. It was only a Kacha Panchayat road years back. Now you will find bus transport is there regularly. So we may have a little sound of the traffic produced here. I would like you to understand that these are the natural environments from where your Swamiji is talking. You cannot expect me to go to a stadium and then create a special environment to give you this talk. Actually, all of you are supposed to come to the Swamis and listen to them sitting where they are. Because of modern technology on the one hand, and also your acclaimed laziness, indifference and resentment, we are trying to reach you through the modern channel right in your drawing rooms or other rooms. But this environment should not be resented or saying that it's a substandard production, etc. Your idea is that, must be, that we are listening to Swamiji from wherever he lives and he speaks. Maybe I may have to record again from Delhi, there the environment will be different. There we are a little away from the road and there is no bus transport as such. But here it is so. I thought I will share with you this information because of the contrast you will find in the scene on the one hand and also the ambience. My dear viewers, we are in the midst of a dialogue. Dialogue that transpired between King or Emperor Nivi on the one hand and the 9 yogis who happened to visit the sacrifice which he was performing in the midst of the sacrifice. As I told you already, any kind of a religious ceremony or ritual, the most high or the most valuable or esteemed is the yaga. That also is suspended when a Mahatma visits the place. There cannot be a ritual or a ceremony or even a yaga or a yajna which exceeds or supersedes the presence of a Mahatma. So when 9 yogis came, the whole yaga was suspended, as I perhaps told you already. They were made to sit there, their feet were washed, and due worship was done by the emperor, for all of which the Ritviks also presided over, or at least gave him instructions and aided him. After that, King Nivi wanted to know what are the devotional dharmas, the characteristics, the behavioral pattern, the interactional methods, etc. of the devotees. He wanted to know. I always like to pay a lot of emphasis in this part. Bhagavata Dharma is a typical devotional expression, phraseology. Dharma means the characteristics which are governing the type of thinking, the kind of speech, the kind of behavior and the kind of interaction. These dharmas, which are generally evinced by, displayed by, pursued by, adhered to by people of lofty devotion. This is something very important. Every one of you will want to become a devotee. Always, therefore, you should look for what is a devotee dharma or characteristic. Suddenly you are not going to become God. So godliness, let it remain for a while somewhere. You always look into who is a devotee, what is a devotee, how will he think, how will he speak, How will he act? How will he interact? What will be the type of behavior, the behavioral nicety or majesty he will have? These are the points I want you to understand very clearly, memorize again and adhere to and be governed by. Something very important. Most of you are going to the temple, seeing the so-called Lord from a distance, particularly in the south. In the south, nobody is permitted to go near the Lord. He sits very safely and sublimely inside the sanctum sanctorum, and all the devotees are standing at least at 10 feet distance. So God is seen from a distance and He is mute. He never talks to you. Then who will answer this question? I am a devotee. As a devotee, my dear Lord, are you pleased with my devotion? Are you happy? When are you going to reward me the full measure of the devotional reward? Namely, I must be able to get you in my heart. You should take me into your heart. And I must have redemption, liberation, release and nirvana. If such a question is raised before a deity, will you ever have an answer? Certainly no, 1,000 times. Then who will answer? That is how the Navayogis took up the responsibility in response to the beseeching of King Nimi, Emperor Nimi, and they started speaking. See how beautifully they explain matters. I was discussing the one important sloka. Avidyamano vyavabhadihi dvayo jadurdhiya swapnamanorathau yatha tatkarma sankalpa vikalpa gammano budho nirundhyat abhayam tadasyat. The first person to speak, Kavi, that yogi is saying, the focus of a devotee should be his very mind. Now, I am asking you, every one of you, what is that? What is your focus in devotion? Apparently your focus is on a distant God. Not only distant, infinitely distant God and invisible God. As long as you have the focus on the invisible and distant, infinitely distant God, when are you going to have a fulfillment in your devotional life? We must have a God who is near to us, close to us, closer to us than the body, than the mind, than the intelligence, no, than even the ego. Unless you are able to bring God closer and closer to you, you are able to think of Him, feel His presence right inside your body, even closer than the mind, closer than the intelligence, and closer than even the ego. I don't think there is going to be a progress in your devotional effort. Mind you, I am discussing the 11th skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is given the name Mukti Skandha. In the south, nobody speaks about it. They always call it Ekadasha, Ekadasham, Ekadasham, etc. The subject discussed is the freedom of the human mind. The freedom from the shackles the mind and the intelligence imposes and brings about. How to liberate the mind from these shackles. How to get hold of freedom, psycho-intellectual freedom and release. Every one of you complains that we have got a tense mind. We have got a congested mind. And we are suffering from a perpetual constriction. We are supposed to expand our mind, enlarge our mind day after day. I always insist upon the proposition, the value, the ideal. Every day of your life must be a day of progressive enrichment. Enrichment means elevation of the mind, expansion of the mind, the shedding of all constrictions, the feeling that I am a child of my family, I am a member of my family, should be replaced by the feeling I am a member of the nation, I am a member of the whole universe. This is the expansion that I would like you to have. Our scriptures would like to have. That is why they have sung right from the Vedic sages, Vedic times, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The entire universe should be our family. Every one of you is looking at the four walls of your room or bedroom or kitchen. Constricted, constricted, constricted forever. You were born in a family. You are going to die in your family. Certainly not. We are human beings. We are human beings. We have got the power of thought, the power of feeling, the power of knowledge, the power of reasoning, the power of understanding, and ultimately the power and potential of realization. Realize, become the real, experience the real. Our body is said to be unreal because it is changeful, constantly changing, every time changing. Change means destruction of the present and emergence of something in its place. So any form of change implies destruction and destruction alone. So our body is not real at all. When I say this, many of you may not understand. But I want you to understand. Otherwise, I would not like to talk at all. Every word represents an idea. And this idea is communicated through articulation. The sound comes and touches your eardrum. But beyond that, it is not a sound. It trickles down in the form of an idea, a unit of knowledge. It has to be received by your mind, imbibed by your intelligence, assimilated by your heart. Until at last your whole being gets transformed. So understand, I want you to know that the human life is meant for thoughtfulness, inquiry, understanding. Sometime in your life you should take up the question, what am I? Who am I? Am I supposed to live and die like an animal, a buffalo, a dog or a cat? Certainly not. Certainly not. We have to think, we have to understand, we have to evaluate matters. Mere eating, sleeping, dressing and mating will not be sufficient. Human life alone has got the possibility of sharing. You can share your thoughts with the others. Others can share the thoughts with themselves. See what is Nimi Chakravarti asking, the Navayogis who by chance happened to visit his sacrifice. He says, please share your heart and mind. Let me know what are the devotional dharmas so that I can hear them, understand them, emulate them, transform my own life, divinize my own life by adhering to them, pursuing them, preserving them. So he wants the Navayogis to share their thoughts and understanding with him. In the same manner, we are supposed to share our knowledge and experience with the others. The whole scriptural texts are nothing but a treasure of wisdom, a treasure of goodness, a treasure of value, a treasure of ideal. With every word they are trying to instill into your mind peace and freedom, knowledge and ecstasy, experience and fulfillment. There is no alternate to this. So this is where we are. Tapo nirundhyat abhayam tatasya tat karma sankalpa vikalpagam mano budho nirundhyat. Kavi describes our mind to be the cause and source of all imagination, all kinds of desire, hatred, intolerance, lack of accommodation, no sympathy, no consideration. Everything is I, myself, my family, nobody else, nobody else, nobody else. Can you live alone as your family member with your family? Can there be a family without a society? And can there be a society without a family and an individual? The bond between the individual and family, you already know. In the same way, there is a bond between the family and the society also. Let us be very clear about it. Budho nirundhyat abhayam tatasya. If you want to have the fearless abode, a life free of fear, you have to lay your hands upon your own mind. Let us go into the intrinsic working of the mind. What is the type of desire that emanates from it? What is the type of imagination that springs from it? Let us be watching properly, very well. And let the whole life be meant for, dedicated to removal and extermination of all the undesirable elements of thought. Every day, how much are you thinking unnecessarily? Hundreds of devotees come to me and they say, Swamiji, we have been hearing, after that hearing. But when we sit in meditation, nothing happens to our mind. Our mind is in a whirlpool. What is this? If you cannot handle your mind, who else will? Can you write the power of authority saying the responsibility of handling mine I give you, and in return I give you $200K US? Can you say that? It is not possible at all. Your mind should be under your control, under your regulation. Be conscious of it. Be conscious of it. Tat karma sankalpa vikalpagam mano. This expression, I must explain it continuously for 51 days. Karma sankalpa vikalpagam mano. This mind is the source and cause of all activities, all interactions. Every activity proceeds from the mind. Interactions also proceed with the mind, from the mind. And activities and interactions are subsisting on the mind. They terminate and conclude also in the mind. You are what your mind is. Nothing else. You are what your body is for others to look, not for you to see. But you are what your mind is. And your mind can be understood only by you and nobody else. Let us be very clear. Now, in the matter of controlling the mind, why is he saying so much? Karma sankalpa vikalpagam mano. The entire universe is nothing but your own mind's display. Mind's display. Sri Krishna explains it in a later portion, in the 13th chapter, a portion that is called Hamsa Gita. Sri Krishna says, Sanagadis were asking of Brahma. Brahma was not able to answer their spiritual question. And he immediately contemplated upon me. I will explain. If this series continues for a long time, I will come to Hamsa Gita and explain it in a much greater detail. Briefly, I want to tell you this. Then suddenly, Sri Krishna says, I appeared in the form of a swan, a Hamsa. So they all asked the Hamsa, who are you? So the Hamsa returned, how dare you ask me this question? If your question is, who are you? What am I? I am not different from you. Your body is Panchabhutas, made up of Panchabhutas. My body is also made up of Panchabhutas. All bodies are. Then why are you asking me, who are you? I have got a Panchabhutic body. Suppose your question is with regard to the soul. Your soul and my soul are the same. So where is the who and where is the I? You understand this? This is how our scriptures begin to discuss the subject. Everywhere you will find the same discussion. The discussion about the soul, the discussion about the body, generating a sense of uniformity, a sense of universalness. It's all a tussle and a task and an endeavor to overcome the stranglehold of differences, plurality and multiplicity. Our mind is bogged down by a sense of difference. I, my family, all the rest are different. I always say, maybe I have told you, I don't remember to whom I have said. I generally speak to the householders in this manner. The householder mind. I adore them. I am born of a householder. Everyone, including Krishna, including Uddhava, everyone. But these householders have to rethink and reevaluate their position. A person has only one son. He has a lot of money, say 100 crores of rupees. His brothers, sons, they are two. He is not very resourceful. So when he makes out a will, he will make out a will for all the 100 crores to be enjoyed by his only son. Only son. Why not he take 10 crores of rupees from that and give it to the brothers' sons? They were born of the same womb. You yourself say, brothers, brothers, brothers. This is the constriction of the householder mind. Better be aware of it. Let us think that the world is great. It is endless. I am a citizen, I am a member of that world. This expansion is very much necessary. Very much necessary. So the mind is the cause of everything. So there he explains, Ikshayada vibhamamidam manaso vilasam drishtam vinashtamadilo lamanatha chakram.